Once upon a time in America, gasoline was cheaper than water, and nobody paid any attention to the environment. Most Americans drove around in enormous land yachts, and the ultimate mark of prestige was a massive V8 under the hood. If an engine displaced less than 5 liters, the car was dismissively labeled an economy runabout. Size, comfort, and power were the defining traits of most American cars of that era. Those road-going liners also drank fuel at an enormous rate, but nobody cared. Back then, a gallon of gas cost about 30 cents, which, adjusted for inflation and converted between gallons, liters, dollars, and rubles, works out to roughly the equivalent of a few kopecks a liter. That kind of cheap fuel explains Americans' love for huge, powerful cars. Nobody worried much about fuel consumption, and soon, a real automotive revolution would sweep the country. The age of the muscle car. In the 1940s came what's now called the baby boom, a sharp spike in birth rates. Americans joke that every third child of that generation was conceived in the back seat of a giant American cruiser. Marketers predicted that, by the early 60s, those kids would grow up and rush to get their driver's licenses. So the industry needed to build a car affordable for young Americans, with a bold, youthful design, and of course, a powerful engine, so young hotheads could burn off their restless energy. Automakers answered with cars like the Pontiac GTO, the Ford Torino, the Ford Mustang, the Chevrolet Camaro, and the Plymouth Barracuda. Just a small sample of the cars America's youth craved at the time. But one of the wildest legends of that era was the Challenger, a true monster of the muscle car age.
Oh, Arthur, this is the new Dodge Challenger RT. It's not a racer.
Yeah. What kind of tires, that boy?
Optional polyglass GTs.
Racing tires.
The word Challenger literally means a challenge, and this challenge was thrown down at the best in the segment. Cars like the Ford Mustang and Chevrolet Camaro. The Challenger's price tag was shockingly low for America. Even in its most powerful, best-equipped trim, it cost around $4,000, roughly 10 months' income for the average American of the time. For comparison, a Moskvich 403 cost about the same money in the USSR back then. Worth pausing on for a moment. The Challenger was offered with a huge range of engines. The weakest was a straight 6, making 145 horsepower. But the real trump card against the competition was the legendary V8 HEMI, a monstrous 7.2-liter engine producing an incredible 425 horsepower for the early 70s. Now picture more than 400 horsepower riding on a soft, comfort-tuned suspension, and you'll understand how much adrenaline a driver got with every mile at full throttle. The quickest Challenger ran 0 to 60 in about 5.9 seconds, and this 1,600 kilogram monster covered the quarter mile in roughly 13.7 seconds. And remember, traction and stability control didn't exist yet. Spinning out in a car like this was easy, and that's exactly what newly licensed young drivers did, leading to some scandalous incidents caused by too much power. For the Indianapolis 500, Dodge supplied Challengers with the most powerful 425 horsepower HEMI engine as pace cars. One of the drivers lost control and drove straight into the grandstands where journalists were seated. Thankfully, no one was seriously hurt. But afterward, reporters turned against the Challenger and wrote critical stories about it, which may have hurt sales. As always, some people found even that much power wasn't enough. Tuning was always a favorite pastime among muscle car fans. You've probably seen it in films, a monstrous bulge poking through a cut hood. That's a supercharger, carburetor, and throttle body that simply wouldn't fit under the hood. A retuned carburetor and throttle body, feeding in extra cold ram air, gave already powerful muscle cars truly wild output. 800 horsepower was already achievable back in the 60s. Cars like that were mostly found in drag racing. And that's exactly what was going on through the 60s and into the early 70s. Then, the inevitable happened. Insurance companies looked at the accident statistics and were horrified. Crash rates for powerful muscle cars had blown past every acceptable threshold, and insuring a powerful car suddenly required a huge premium. Then came extremely strict emissions regulations, forcing every automaker to sharply cut their engine's output. But what finally killed the muscle car was the fuel crisis of 1973. Gas prices tripled or quadrupled almost overnight, which devastated sales of thirsty cars, and nearly every manufacturer discontinued their monsters. Our hero met the same fate. In 1974, Dodge halted Challenger production, the end of a wild era of crazy, beautiful cars. In 1978, there was an attempt to revive the Challenger name. Dodge partnered with Mitsubishi and started selling a lightly rebadged Japanese Mitsubishi Galant Lambda under the Challenger nameplate. That Challenger made just 114 horsepower, and its performance wasn't worth discussing after decades of 100-plus horsepower monsters. Next to those, the new model looked pale, to put it mildly, and never won over Americans, who joked openly about the swap. After that, the Challenger name was forgotten for many years, but legends only die to be reborn. Word that the legendary Dodge Challenger muscle car would return to production suddenly broke in 2008. It landed like a bombshell, and within just 3 days, the entire first year's production run sold out. It was built in the spirit of the good old muscle car and closely resembled the first-generation Challenger. Right from launch, it was available with a genuine American 6.1-liter V8, making 425 horsepower. Not bad for a start. But don't think for a second that Dodge stopped at 425 horsepower. The arms race among fierce rivals, the Mustang and the Camaro, was only heating up, just like the old days, as any muscle car fan would point out, and rightly so. 425 horsepower, then 470, then 515. And of course, there's the version from the Street and Racing Technology Division, the Challenger SRT8 Hellcat at 707 horsepower. All that glory is available even with a manual gearbox, doing 0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds, with top speed capped at 321 kilometers per hour. But as tradition demands, before we get to the wildest Challenger on the planet, a few of the most interesting facts. A Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat hit 274 kilometers per hour in an amateur competition in Sweden. At first glance, that's nothing remarkable, except for one small detail. That speed was reached by a rear-wheel drive Challenger riding on studded tires. Footage that went viral on YouTube shows just how unstable the Hellcat is on a slick surface at that kind of speed. It really needed all-wheel drive. And surprisingly, an all-wheel drive Challenger does exist. Dodge built the world's first all-wheel drive muscle car. For now, it's only offered with the weakest engine, at 309 horsepower. But a start has been made, and who knows what's coming next. American tuning knows no limits, and sometimes it doesn't get along with common sense at all. Whatever's unusual eventually turns up in America. At one tuning shop, they built limousines based on the Challenger SRT8, stretching the muscle car by 3.5 meters. The total length of this eye-catching limo reaching around 8.6 meters. But there's also tuning that makes you want to give a standing ovation. You've probably seen those reality shows about beat-up American classics getting transformed from rust buckets into showroom pieces, where crews restore iconic cars. In shows like that, they don't stop at simple restoration. To improve handling, dynamics, and comfort, the old 60s-era components get swapped for parts that fully meet modern standards. In serious builds, a muscle car that originally came with a solid rear axle gets an independent rear suspension instead. The front suspension is also replaced, right down to changing the geometry of the control arms.
The body gets reinforced, modern steering is fitted, and the engine and transmission are swapped. In the US, you can buy fully modified, brand new units for all of it. One such Challenger build project, under the hood, just like the good old days, sits a 7-liter HEMI, modernized and heavily reworked, now putting out 540 horsepower. Projects like that genuinely fill me with real, undisguised admiration. True works of art. And of course, there are the movies. The Dodge Challenger has starred in a huge number of American blockbusters, some of which are essential viewing. Vanishing Point, both the 1971 original and the 1997 remake. Those films are essentially one long chase, with the Challenger practically a lead character alongside the humans. In Quentin Tarantino's Death Proof, the Challenger gets shown off in chase scenes in all its glory, with the characters marveling at the car in the dialogue. In another film, one of the characters owns a stunning custom black Challenger and uses it to pull off a spectacular run through the city. And of course, the Fast and Furious franchise. The second installment, as well as 5, 6, and 7, were all graced by the Challenger, both the classic and the current generation. The muscle car has also shown up in films like Drive, Death Race, Natural Born Killers, Smokin' Aces, Focus, and Getaway, and the list goes on. Every one of those films was only improved by the Challenger's appearance. But now, let me introduce you to the Challenger possessed by a demon, the fastest muscle car in history, the Challenger SRT Demon. This machine was first cleared for use on public roads, then banned, then allowed again. Debate over the Demon's road safety still hasn't died down. Dodge's engineers proudly claim they built the most dynamic production car in the world, one of the fastest sports cars in the quarter mile. In 2016, the Challenger SRT Demon covered the quarter mile in 9.6 seconds, officially verified. The Demon became the first production car in the world to lift its front wheels off the ground on launch, a feat even recorded in the Guinness World Records. Using a supercharger, this American V8 was turned into a monster, making 852 horsepower and 1,044 Newton-meters of torque. 0 to 60 takes a fantastical 2.5 seconds. It should be noted that the Demon posts those numbers on specially prepped drag radial tires, on a prepared drag strip running racing fuel. So that the owner of this cannonball doesn't wreck it on an ordinary road, it comes with 2 keys. A black key that limits the engine to 500 horsepower, and a red key that, together with an optional control module, unlocks the full 852 horsepower. Traction comes courtesy of tires developed specifically for the Demon. Slow motion footage shows just how much they deform on launch. The suspension is tuned so that at launch, as much of the car's weight as possible transfers onto the rear wheels, loading them up and improving grip. The car was stripped down to save every possible pound. They even removed the infotainment system and the rear bench, along with the front passenger seat. Though, for a token $1 fee, you can have it all put back. The Demon package also comes with a special drag kit that includes a hydraulic jack, a battery-powered impact wrench, a tire pressure gauge, a torque wrench, and special narrow drag front tires. There's just one catch. The car is so fast that official races require a roll cage, and the driver must hold a racing license. The Dodge Challenger is a true muscle car. Cars like this were never known for textbook handling or cutting-edge technology. But one thing you can't take away from them is style, aggression, a magnetic design, and a wild, incredibly tough American V8. Heads will always turn for it, and people will always admire it, because this is the story of pure American madness.